So you're thinking about moving to Renton
or Newcastle.
Well, in this video, we're gonna do a little bit of a pro and con style video, comparing and contrasting what it's like to live in Renton versus what it's like to live in Newcastle. So stick around, you're not gonna wanna miss this. We're gonna get after it right now.
Hey, if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know all there is to know about living in King County, Washington, or places like Renton and Newcastle, like we're talking about today, hit the subscribe button, tap the bell for notifications. That way you can be the first to be notified of a new video of Newcastle, Renton, or one of our other favorite cities here in King County. I'm Brad Decatur. We got Derek Decatur here. We are the Decatur home team. We get calls, texts, and emails from people just like you every day who are looking to make their move to King County. So whether you're 1 day or 1 year away, we'd love to help you make a smooth move. All the contact info is below, so feel free to reach out, call, text, email. We'll hop on a Zoom call to help you make that move. So Newcastle versus, or excuse me.
Yes,
Newcastle. Yes, Newcastle versus Renton.
Yes.
Yeah, kick it off.
Similar. I think of Newcastle as kind of like the plateau to some extent. Like, to me, Newcastle feels like it's kind of its own little separate thing.
It is. It's really
because
small,
you really, yeah, it is really small, and you're also, you don't just drive through. You don't just randomly drive through Newcastle.
Yeah.
You know, like you're gonna get off to go to Newcastle, so it's kind of its own separate thing. I don't know if that answers any of your questions at all, but that's what I think about.
Well, there's lots of differences,
Sure.
Similarities, so we'll go through kind of each category. I think that the main thing is going to be the pricing, which we'll get into, but also Newcastle, again, is very, very small, and Renton is pretty much huge. Renton's really big. There's different parts of Renton, so even one like segment of Renton, like the Highlands or downtown or Fairwood, one of those little segments is going to be the same size as like Newcastle as a whole.
Yep.
So definitely a little bit different of a vibe. Small town,
very different.
It's not a small town, but it's like a small community vibe in Newcastle.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, it's kind of its own.
It is
little area.
Yep. So let's do location then first. So location, what do you got?
I mean,
I'd say Newcastle's closer.
Yeah, Newcastle you can drop onto 90 real quick. I mean, you can drop down on the other side and go and hit 405 fairly quickly. Also, Newcastle almost kind of blocks a part of Renton. You know, so Newcastle's closer to Bellevue and Seattle.
Yep.
So I guess Newcastle wins. Although similar to the plateau in Sammamish, you got to get to the freeway still. So depending on where you're at in Newcastle and depending on where you're at in Renton is going to make a big difference. But just looking at location on a map, Newcastle is going to be a little bit closer.
Yeah, I mean Newcastle splits Renton and Bellevue. Like it's the in between city there technically. So I would say Newcastle wins for location. It depends on where you're going. Of course, if you're going to Tacoma, then Renton wins. But overall, you're going to be closer to both the intersections of 405 and I-90.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would go with that.
Yep.
So another main difference would be, probably the school districts. So it's kind of interesting. So Newcastle actually has both school districts, Issaquah School District and Renton School District. Renton also has both school districts of Renton and Issaquah. So overall, Issaquah is going to be a much better school district than Renton. So it really depends on depending on which city you're at, which actually location in the city you're at, to see which one you get.
Yeah, it's a unique spot because that border does kind of cut Newcastle almost in half, maybe in thirds, I don't know. But that west side is going to go more towards the Renton School District. Anything south is going to be more Renton as well. And then as you come up into Newcastle, basically from the golf course over, so from the golf course east is going to be that Issaquah School District. Yep.
And then Renton, I mean, because Renton's huge, so I would say 85-90% of it is Renton School District. It's just this part over here, if it's not a mirror image, is going to be the one closer to Issaquah. That will be your Issaquah School District. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it's a wash, but because they're both, I would say more of Newcastle is in Issaquah than Renton. But there's also the different schools of, it could be the same school district, but there's different schools. So for example, if you're in Newcastle and you're in the Renton School District, you're going to Newcastle Elementary, probably still better than being in downtown Renton going to the Renton Elementary. So it depends on, even within the same school district, it does depend on what location. So because of that, I would still definitely give Newcastle the win as far as school district, even though they both have the same one,
Sure.
because
No, I understand.
the specific schools in
Yeah.
Newcastle probably better than the specific schools in Renton on average.
Yep. I think that maybe the next thing we'll touch on is the housing prices is going to drive some of that as well. Some of those schools that are in the Renton School District but near Newcastle are going to be a little different than the schools in maybe downtown Renton.
Yep.
South Renton, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about pricing. Who wins out, or the differences, compare and contrast in terms of pricing.
Well, yeah, Newcastle is a pretty more luxury area than Renton. There's luxury in both, but yeah, pricing wise, I mean, if you're looking at averages and median price points, it's a significant difference. Newcastle is a ton more expensive than Renton on average. Newcastle's stats were in the mid millions for the average price point here recently in March, and Renton is more like that 700 and something. So it's almost twice.
And
as
that's just your
expensive.
average too. I mean, you start to get near the golf course. I mean, those houses get pretty.
Well, that's
pretty wild.
Yeah, that's why the average is so high in Newcastle. Like, even if you take like Issaquah, like I don't think of Issaquah and Newcastle being very different as far as pricing goes. But if you look at the actual stats, Newcastle is actually more. And the reason for that, if you're looking at all single family and condo, is because Newcastle is basically all neighborhoods of pretty good houses, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 square foot. They're all the same, like neighborhood sidewalks, cul-de-sacs. So of course, all their averages are pretty high. Issaquah is going to still have like your $350,000 one-bed condo, so that's going to bring the average down. So same with Renton. I mean, Newcastle is basically houses, more expensive houses, and family, type neighborhoods, whereas Renton has a whole bunch of different types of properties.
Yeah, much more diversity in Renton.
Yep.
Things to do, activities.
Things to do,
Well, I know one of my favorite things, and Brad's favorite things to do is golf. So you got Newcastle Golf Course, which is actually 2 courses. It's just right there in Newcastle. So that's a win. But Renton has, as we touched on, Top Golf as well. I would really say that Renton probably wins out here because there's not a ton to do in Newcastle. Newcastle is a community of homes plus the golf course. You've got your Safeway right there, kind of at the top. I think it's a Safeway.
They got a Safeway and a QFC on opposite sides of the street.
But really, that's kind of it. And so there's beautiful area, beautiful homes, beautiful communities, but you are going to have to leave Newcastle to go and do something.
Yep, for sure. Renton, I mean, it's so huge. Each little pocket's going to have a shopping center. Newcastle has the one shopping center with that QFC and Safeway. So as far as like the shopping side of it, Renton would win by far and away. But however, I would say that Newcastle is only like a few minutes away from that Factoria Mall, which is a Bellevue address. But if you're trying to do that kind of shopping, very easy to get there. But yeah, things to do. The golf course is pretty cool. So anyway, there you go.
Yep, absolutely.
That's pretty much it, I think.
I think so.
So yeah, it really just comes down to the price point. I would say is really the main thing, and like what you're looking for. If you're looking for the bigger house with cul-de-sac sidewalks, more neighborhood, luxury, and you can afford it, more luxury. Obviously, Newcastle is going to be better fit. If you're not buying for $1.5 million. Newcastle's probably not going to be a fit.
Probably not going to work.
Yeah, so Renton would be a better fit.
Absolutely. I think that is the main differentiator in these two is definitely going to be price point, maybe more than some of the other ones we've talked about so far.
Yeah, it's pretty drastic. Considering they're
right there.
Yeah.
Yep, it is fairly drastic.
Thanks for watching. If this is your first time, check out all the playlists. We look at each city, bunch of different videos, 4 or 5 on each different city. So if you're looking at Newcastle, you're probably also looking at Issaquah, Renton, Bellevue. We cover them all, check them out, and when you're ready to reach out, all the info is below.